and it gets us back into scripture, that's a pretty powerful argument. And I've said, yes, I think one of the most powerful metaphysical arguments are at our disposal. And no, I got to say, I think C.S. Lewis was really onto something in 1947. His argument wasn't, it was just kind of the initial thoughts behind it. And it was quickly, I should say too quickly dismissed by folks like Anscombe and others. I didn't really get a fair shake. And I think it's too bad, because really, I think the arguments from reason, I think, in my personal opinion, they're the most powerful arguments for God, for God's existence. And I've said certain free thinking arguments and arguments from reason really, a lot of people get mad when I say this, but I say it's really one of the most powerful metaphysical arguments in our repertoire, because it shows not just that God exists, but it shows what's likely the case with humanity, that more than just the physical, probably. If we're not, then we've really got some big miracles going on. But it is J.P. Moreland once said that humans, when we exercise our libertarian freedom, it's many miracles. And we can do that because we're created in the image and likeness of God. But our ability to freely think in a libertarian sense is a God-given gift. It's a supernatural power. Let that sink in, a supernatural power. And so that, again, it's one of the arguments I advance. It ends with it after concluding three deductive. So I'll give it to you off the top of my head here. I say,
okay.
Premise one: if robust naturalism is true, God or things like God do not exist. 2, if God or things like God do not exist, then humans do not freely think in a libertarian sense. 3, if humans do not freely think in the libertarian sense, then humans are not epistemically responsible. 4, humans are occasionally epistemically responsible. 5, therefore humans freely think in a libertarian sense. 6, therefore God or things like God exist. 7, therefore robust naturalism is false. And then 8, I give an abductive conclusion here, and I say the inference or the best explanation of God, things like God, and human libertarian freedom is the biblical account of reality. And so that allows us to get into scripture and show exactly why this is the case and how this is backed up by scripture. So I love the fact that it doesn't just show that God, things like God exist. It also shows that we have libertarian freedom. It shows that naturalism is false, and it gets us back into scripture. That's a pretty powerful argument. And I've said, yes, I think one of the most powerful metaphysical arguments at our disposal. And so many folks have just, can you believe that Stratton says stuff like this? I'm like, well, I'm saying it for reasons here. I'm like, look at all these conclusions. That's more than the Kalam is going to give you. It's more than the moral argument is going to give you. It's even more than the ontological argument gives us quite a bit. I do think the ontological argument is sound. It's just not persuasive to a lot of folks, but it's a good argument, I think. And that gives us a lot. But this version of the free thinking argument, that's given us a lot of insight into ultimate reality too, if it passes. And I think it passes. I think it's a sound argument. So.